Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about the sponsors for my channel. Card Conduit is the best way to sell your unused Magic cards. Whether you've got a box of unsorted bulk, or a complete and alphabetized set, there's a great option for everyone. With a payout averaging 19% better than using any one buy list, and that's after fees are applied, you can rest assured you'll get the best bang for your buck. If you're a skeptic like me, their easy customer service and detailed reports make the whole interaction transparent and safe. And if you use the affiliate link in the description below, or the promo code MTGMUDSTA, you'll save 10% off their fees. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. Not to mention an easy-to-use and great online buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMUDSTA, your first purchase of MTG Sealed and Singles will be 5% off. And Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest deck. So be sure to use the code MUDSTA or the affiliate link down below to save 5% on your next order. Today's patron shoutout goes to Adam. Thanks Adam for supporting me through Patreon. Hey gang, and welcome back. In today's game, we have Max, Mathieu, Arja, and myself battling it out with some brand new decks. I say brand new, but Matt has brought his Doric deck again, keeping 2 Forests, Plaza of Heroes, Nature's Claim, Kolvori, Return of the Wildspeaker, and Sword of the Animist. I am playing the Master Multiplied, which is one of my Patreon submitted decks, keeping Shadowblood Ridge, Mountain, Swamp, Command Tower, Nemesis Trap, Molten Duplication, and Talisman of Indulgence. Arja has built Belbe recently, and he's keeping 2 Swamps, Pulse Tracker, Heartless Conscription, It That Betrays, Golgari Guildgate, and a Loyal Subordinate. Last but not least, Max has built the newly released Bloomburrow commander, Wildsear, and he keeps Wooded Foothills, Crashing Footfalls, Forest, Power Balance, Fight Rigging, and a Primal Order. Mathieu wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a Forest. I just play a Mountain. Arja's got a Swamp for turn, and he casts Pulse Tracker. Max plays a Forest and does his best modern impression as he suspends Crashing Footfalls and passes. Mathieu plays Plaza of Heroes, and then pays 2 for the Ringheart Crest, naming Druids and passing. I've also got a Mana Rock after I play a Swamp, casting Felwar Stone. Arja plays a tapped Golgari Guildgate, and he then swings the Pulse Tracker at Max. He gets his own attack trigger, which has Arja's opponents losing 1, and Max then takes 1, and Arja passes. Max downticks his Crashing Footfalls. He plays a Mountain, and then enchants the Mountain with a Wolf Willow Haven, and passes to Matt after that. Matt's got a Forest for turn, and casts a turn 3 Doric. She comes in, and finds him a Forest, and he passes while searching. I've got a tap Blood Crypt for turn, and then tap 2 mana for Talisman of Indulgence. I pass to Arja with that resolving. Arja's got an Evolving Wilds for turn, and he's got enough mana for Belbe. He then swings the Pulse Tracker at Max again, which has each opponent losing 1 life. Max then takes the hit for 1, and Arja then moves to a second main phase. This has Arja gaining 6 colorless mana from Belbe's ability, and he uses 4 of it to cast Sisay's Ring. Once it resolves, he passes. Max downticks his suspended sorcery, drawing for turn, and then plays a Wooded Foothills. He cracks it, losing 1, and goes to find a Mountain. He now has enough mana for Wildsear, and he passes to Matt after that. Matt's got a Forest for turn, and he goes to combat. He swings Doric at Arja, who takes the 3. Matt then plays Yorvo in his second main phase, and once he resolves, plays Sword of the Animist, and then passes to me. I've got a Command Tower for turn, and then just tap 6, casting the Master Multiplied, and passing to Arja. Arja's got a Forest for turn, and he's not too keen that all of us has blockers for his 1/1 now. He still swings the Pulse Tracker at Max though, and gets his on attack trigger, and Max then blocks. In his second main phase, Arja gains 6 colorless mana from Belbe, and uses all of it and his remaining mana to cast It That Betrays. Max downtakes Crashing Footfalls, and then plays a Mountain for turn. He taps 3 for Fight Rigging, which gets him a Cascade from Wildsear. He reveals off the top and actually luckily hits Kenrith's Transformation, which he enchants the Eldrazi with. As it comes in, he draws a card, and Fight Rigging then resolves, and he gets to hide away a card from it. Moving to combat, he gets to put a +1/+1 counter onto his commander from fight rigging, and with his power now being 7, this allows him to cast the rigging spell, which turns out to be Zendikar Resurgence. Max then moves through combat to second main phase, and he taps a mountain to cast Power Balance, cascading until he hits Gaia's Will. He chooses not to cast it, and bottoms it instead. Matt untaps and draws for turn. He plays a forest, and equips Doric with the sword. Going to combat, Doric goes at Arja. He gets his sword and Doric trigger, resolving the Doric one first, and transforming her into an owlbear. This pumps the board, and Matt then goes to find a forest. Arja doesn't block, and takes the hit to the face, and with nothing else, Matt passes. I untap and draw. I play out Shadowblood Ridge, and then pay 2 for Demonic Tutor. I go into my library and find a piece of removal, grabbing Deadly Relic, which the table will soon find out. I first cast Molten Duplication and target the Master, making an artifact copy of it with haste. I then use the Deadly Relic to take out Wildsear. Going to combat, I swing my Masters at Max and get 2 Myriad triggers, swinging 2 token copies of the Master at Matt and Arja as well. Arja and Max don't block, while Matt stops one of them. They then take their hits. In my second main phase, I'm so excited to cast it I forget about the Belbe trigger, as I put to stack Overpowering Attack, paying its free running cost since my commander connected. This untaps my Masters, and Max points out the Belbe mana, so I get to untap some lands as well. I then move to my next combat step, and swing 5 Masters at Max, getting 5 Myriad triggers as well, which each go at Matt and Arja. No one blocks this time around, and they all take 20, which is nice. I've got nothing else though, and I just pass to Arja. Arja untaps and draws for turn. He casts a Loyal Subordinate, and this has Max revealing Tarmogoyf Nest from his Power Balance trigger, and he gets to cast it and puts it onto a mountain. Arja then moves to combat, and each of his opponents lose 3 life from the Subordinate trigger. He then swings the Kenrith transformed Eldrazi at Max to take him out, but Matt intervenes to, air quote, save Max, and uses Nature's Claim on the Zendikar Resurgence. Max reveals a non-1 casting spell on the top to Power Balance, and Zendikar Resurgence then gets blown up, with Max gaining 4 life. Max then takes the hit for 3, which drops him back to 4, which is what he started with. In his second main phase, Arja then gains 6 colorless mana from Belbe, and basically taps out to cast Ingarok's Wake. It resolves, and wipes away the board of all of his opponents, and Arja then passes to Max. Max untaps and casts his Crashing Footfalls, making 2 4/4 Rhino tokens. He then draws for turn, and enchants Fertile Ground onto a mountain. He then plays Primal Order. With nothing else, Max passes. Matt loses 1 from Primal Order, draws for turn, and plays a forest. He then casts Tusky, and once it's out, plays Mending of Dominaria. He mills 2, and returns Yeva to hand, and then passes to me. I untap, losing 3 from Primal Order, and draw for turn. I cast Flame Shadow Conjuring, and then ship it to Arja. Arja's upkeep has him losing half of his life to the Order trigger, which is 1, and Max remembers his Power Balance trigger to the Flame Shadow Conjuring, revealing and playing Mana Barbs. This makes things very different for Arja's turn, and he just moves to combat. He gets his Subordinate trigger, which deals 3 to each opponent, and he then swings out at Max. Max decides to take pity on Arja in the hope that he can still fight through all this, and he lets it all through since he's dead either way. In his second main phase, Arja gains his 6 colorless mana, and with access to 12 mana, he uses most of it to cast Heartless Conscription, and with nothing else, he passes to Matt. Matt draws and mills his top 2 for the Mending of Dominaria, ticking it up, and returns to hand Emissary Green. He then plays a forest, big surprise, and he ships it to me. I untap, draw, and pay 6 mana in my main phase to cast Scourge of the Throne. As it enters, I pay the 1 red to Flame Shadow Conjuring, and make a hasty copy of it. I can't get the Dethrone trigger no matter what, so I swing the token at Arja to take him out. With nothing else, I pass. During my end step, Matt flashes out Yeva. Once she's resolved, he's then able to flash out Doric, who upon entering, finds him a forest, and puts it to hand. Matt untaps and draws. He adds the final Saga counter to the Mending of Dominaria, which will ultimately do nothing for him now. He's supposed to shuffle, but we unfortunately miss it, and he instead casts Regrowth, returning Monster Manual to his hand. He then casts the adventure half of it, milling 5, and returns the very expensive Kamal to his hand. He asks for life totals, noting that I'm at 28 life, which he can't do in one shot, and just passes to me after that. I draw and play a mountain. I then cast Jeska's Will and pick the mode to exile my top 3. One of the cards is Rankle and Torbrand, who notably have haste and flying built in. I then cast them and go to combat, swinging my flying death creatures at Matt's face and win the game. Game review time. Yes, it's the middle of summer and I'm wearing a hoodie. It is super hot here in Ottawa and our AC unit is running and I am freezing here in the basement. But what wasn't freezing was how lightning hot and fast this game was. It came to just over 32 minutes, which isn't surprising considering it's basically 3 Jund colored kind of decks. I thought everyone kind of had a really aggressive kind of feel to it. Belbe, Arja tried to spin it as a group hug deck, which I guess in some twisted theory he's not wrong. Belbe gives out colorless mana like it's candy as long as you're attacking his opponents. And seeing that like turn 4 or 5, that betrays, terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Eldrazi's are going to come out so fast based around that. It was really cool to see. I think everyone else was able to get some benefit out of it too, which is pretty sweet, although you have to be a bit careful with that kind of stuff. I think Max had a great showing with Wildsear. It didn't look like he had to upgrade all that much. There were a few cards that I hadn't seen in the pre-con, but things like fight rigging with Wildsear, just so cool. As soon as you basically finish the hideaway, you move to combat, and you've already met the criteria to get the spell for free. That's just awesome. And the Cascade, hitting that Kenner's transformation was so sweet. I love that kind of stuff where you just hope, and sometimes it pays off. In Matt's case, I think, as I said, there was that misplay with the Mending of Dominaria. Ultimately didn't change that much. I'm pretty sure I was going to win no matter what. But yeah, it's a bit awkward. Unfortunately, his Doric deck was not as aggressive as it normally is. Oftentimes, I find that he just pumps out legendaries and then keeps attacking with Doric and flipping and transforming and pumping and doing it over and over and over again. There's a lot of legendary cards in the deck, and it just cares about legendaries, which it basically is what it did. The Master Multiplied. I love Myriad. It's one of my favorite effects in the game, or not effects, abilities in the game for a long time. I love the fact that you get temporary tokens, you get into the battlefield effects, you just get a lot of really cool stuff. And the fact that you don't get rid of them is just bonkers. I think I had the perfect hand to showcase this deck, and none of my opponents really knew what they were expecting. The Deadly Rollick clearing the way, followed by the Molten Duplication to be able to have 2 masters, meant that that one combat step was just going to be brutal. Plus the fact that I had the extra combat step, oh! And the deck, even though I ate a removal spell, or a board wipe actually, the turn immediately after my own, I was able to come back pretty well. The Flame Shadow Conjuring is great. It's a card that I hope to play more in the future. And even the Scourge of the Thrones, I didn't even get a dethrone trigger, and I was still able to just bash face. I'm hoping to give this game another 1 or 2 more chances because it just seems absolutely awesome. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.